It's an all ages interactive worship experience that includes a meal, and everything is tied together in a celebration with Jesus right at the center.
Welcome to the Fresh Expressions podcast, where we talk about how the Spirit is stirring up new forms of church right where life happens. I'm your host, Heather Jalad, and today we're exploring a movement that began in the UK around the same time as Fresh Expressions, Messy Church. It's creative, it's intergenerational, it's centered around hospitality and hands-on faith. And for many, it's become a doorway into experiencing church and community for the very first time. My guest today is Crystal Goetz, a Messy Church practitioner and ambassador, who's been walking this journey for many years. She's seen firsthand how God meets people in the middle of glue sticks, glitter, and conversations around tables. And she's seen how Messy Church becomes a beautiful Spirit-led expression of the body of Christ. We'll talk about her story, the heartbeat of Fresh Expressions, and Messy Church, and how it overlaps with that movement. And we'll talk about how you might begin experimenting with something similar in your own context. Let's jump into the conversation. Well, welcome back to the Fresh Expressions podcast, where this season we are talking about the different streams of Fresh Expressions. And I'm excited for this conversation with Messy Church practitioner and Messy USA ambassador, Crystal Goetz, who is going to be sharing with us about her Messy Church story and adventure. And I know going to inspire you to think about what Messy Church could look like in your particular context. So, Crystal, so excited for you to join us for this conversation. Why don't you introduce yourself the way you like to be introduced, and share with our listeners a little bit about how you got to be a part of the Messy Church movement.
Thanks, Heather. I'm really excited to be here. Anytime I get a chance to talk about Messy Church is a good day. So this is exciting and thrilling for me. My background is, again, my name is Crystal Goetz. I am a writer, trainer, ambassador, practitioner, and Messy Church enthusiast all around. I have been doing Messy Church for about 8 years now. Started 2 Messy Churches, both in the greater Seattle area, and they are both still going strong. And I'm excited to say that they are doing all the things that they need to do to sustain themselves for many, many years to come. My whole journey with Messy Church really started about 2017. I did a Messy Church training, kind of a funny story, actually. As a family ministries director for many years, I was that for 25 years. I was advised by the pastor's wife to go and do a Messy Church training. The only Messy Church training available at that time was the day before our vacation Bible school started. And I was just like, I do not have time for the, I know.
Gosh.
Yeah, crazy.
Capacity, bandwidth. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said, I do not have time for this. I don't have time for one more thing on my plate. Why do you want me to do this? And I felt kind of cornered into doing it. And it was, like I said, the day before VBS started, and luckily I was ready, but I thought, okay, I just have to do this. I'll get through it, and it was a good hour drive to get there. And I had other people with me and just a lot going on in my head. I arrived and my world was changed forever. Roberta Egli, our founding director, was my trainer, and she was beyond amazing, guiding us through the basics of how to do Messy Church. And I began to see through her words exactly what I had been looking for in church for many, many years. And so I came back excited, almost too excited to do VBS, if you can imagine, but I was just thrilled to start. I was excited to talk about it, and the rest kind of came out of that. And then, relationships began to build through the network of people in Messy Church. And that became an international thing as well as a USA thing.
So, First Expressions and Messy Church kind of got started at the same time in the UK, right? So they have a lot of, they kind of were both birthed out of this, what do we do about the people that are not coming to church anymore, and really the decline that we see in the inherited church. So they have a lot of the same shape and desire to, kind of that missional thrust, right? And to meet people where they are and to think about church differently. So I'm curious, the pastor's wife that said, you need to go do this, like, what was that kind of itch that needed to be scratched there, that she was sending you to do this, even knowing that, hey, VBS is starting tomorrow. And I'm going to say, God bless the people that went with you, because they were probably also helping with VBS.
Oh, yes, they all were. And they're like, you're crazy. And I'm like, it wasn't my
they were
idea.
Probably looking at you going, Crystal, what are you doing? They probably thought you were crazy too.
Well, interestingly, the pastor's wife at the time had her own church. It wasn't the church I was serving. It was a different church. So she was actually at that training also, but with her church group. And so if I didn't come, she was going to report back to the boss that I didn't come. So I needed to make sure that this happened. I needed to come clean about it, be honest and open. And as I said, it was just a life changer. For me, it's interesting because even for someone who's been attending church a long time, working in a church as a lay person, I just wasn't getting a lot out of church. And I needed something myself that was fulfilling and enriching and kind of furthering my faith journey, which I hadn't really been experiencing as a church worker. It's difficult to sit in church without having to work and those kinds of things. So this was just what I needed personally too.
Wow. So it sounds like it really kind of activated your faith in a whole new way by thinking about church differently.
It absolutely did. It was
she's
the right
shaking
thing at
her
the
head.
right.
Yeah, she's shaking her head.
It was, and I tease this pastor's wife. I see her occasionally for various things, and I'm like, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be heavily involved with Messy Churches. So thank you for that. Also, I was very mad at the time. I forgive you, and we can move on from that. So.
So talk a little bit about, I guess, maybe, I don't know if it's the training. I mean, let's just talk about kind of the shape of Messy Church for people that don't really know what Messy Church is. What does it look like? And what is the shape of it? And how does it look different from children's ministry or, what happens in your typical Sunday morning?
It really honestly contains many of the same elements, but also it's just really different. So how I describe Messy Church to people is it's an all ages interactive worship experience that includes a meal, and everything is tied together in a celebration with Jesus right at the center. And it's church. Messy Church is church. That's the important thing to remember. It's church, but not as we've known it. And that is extremely appealing to me. I tend to be a little bit of a rebel. I came from a Catholic background and took a long break from faith for a long time and then came into Methodism. And now Messy Church, when people ask me what church I go to, I say I go to Messy Church. So that's how my faith journey has become, even though I still belong to a Methodist church. Messy Church is my church. And what the shape of Messy Church, what that looks like is that welcome piece is huge. There's 5 core values, which is hospitality, Christ-centered, celebration, creativity. I'm looking down because it's a lot to remember. There's 9 building blocks of Messy Church. And it's sometimes hard to keep it all straight in your head because once you've been doing it for a little while, it all makes sense. But when you're starting, it can be a little bit it's a lot to remember. So it's all ages together. And that's hard for a lot of people. That particular value is really hard because we've sort of always either invited children to go off to Sunday school during worship service or something else.
Right.
It hasn't really been necessarily about celebrating together and journeying together. And it is a challenge, I hear from many people, to try to find activities and things to do together that can be for all ages together. But once you get it down, it is amazing to watch. I've seen lifelong friendships happen between teenagers and seniors and every age in between. Lots of singles, especially in a couple of in one of the messy churches that I started, we were near a military base. There were a lot of single people that came because their spouses were deployed and they didn't really have a community. And so coming into a community where they didn't have to cook, they didn't have to think, and not a lot was like, you didn't have to know when to sit, stand, those kinds of things that are in a traditional worship service. It was just come, sit down, talk, have a meal with me. Let's go do this craft together, or let's go do this game together, or whatever. It feels comfortable. And so for me, I guess the shape of messy church can vary according to the needs, the context of whatever group is doing it. Sometimes people start with a meal. Sometimes people end with a meal. Sometimes it's in the morning. Sometimes it's in the evening. It just really depends on what you need. And that's the neat thing about it, is it's so flexible to the needs of the particular group that is doing it. I always, I use this analogy. Maybe it's not a good one. So if you have there's 9 building blocks. So those 5 core values, and then the 4 key components, which are, there's that blank that happens when you start to want to rattle things off. And that is what I'm experiencing right now. But it is actually welcome,
that's why.
celebration. Yeah. Welcome, celebration. And there's one I'm forgetting. But anyway, those 9 things together are a fence line. If you think about them as a fence line, and inside that fence is your messy church. You can do anything you want inside those, as long as you have those 9 elements in your messy church. You can call yourself a messy church and just do it any way you want to. And, so the cows are wandering freely within that fence line.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's you can contextualize it. You can scale it however you need to scale it based on your particular community, where that's happening, the rhythms of life there, those are all important values and concepts around the Fresh Expressions movement, right? And how we take into consideration the people that we're building those communities with, right? What are the rhythms of their lives, right? Because oftentimes we're looking to build community and relationships with people that are not going to come into our buildings on Sunday morning. And there's reasons for that. Sometimes it's, it is a rhythm of life. Sunday morning doesn't work. Sometimes it's, the idea of the traditional church might not be for them. Sometimes these messy churches don't happen in church buildings. Sometimes they happen in non-traditional spaces as well. So, they might happen in a community center or in a park or in, some other space. So there's a lot of different elements to take into consideration, when these are forming. So it's not necessarily a prescriptive, but like you said, these are kind of the building blocks or the fence line, if you will, that you kind of create that space. You create what this community looks like with the people that are a part of it, rather than being prescriptive or programmatically thinking about it. I was just wondering, you talked a little bit about how this has impacted even your own faith journey. And I'm wondering how just intergenerational ministry in particular has shaped your understanding of even spiritual growth. Because, I I see how, we have these ideas of, the older teaching the younger, but I'm wondering, like, what are you learning even from younger people younger than yourself, or even, seeing that play out in some of the messy churches that you've been a part of?
Oh, most definitely. This one particular messy church evening comes to mind. We were preparing a paper version of a meal where God was coming to dinner. Okay. And we had to draw on the paper exactly what we were going to serve and what it was going to look like. And we talked about it. And we had every age you can conceive of there. We had a really little kid. We had a brother and sister. We had a single young adult. We had a couple, like the parent of the brother and sister. And then we had a couple of, they were in their 80s. I can't exactly guess, but a couple. And then me. And we were all sitting there and we're like, well, what do you even think we should serve for dinner? I mean, this is God, you guys. God is coming to dinner. What do we want to serve God? And one of the young people at the table piped up and said, well, spaghetti and meatballs, of course, because it's the best. And we want the best. And I'm like, that's fantastic. Let's draw the spaghetti and meatballs on the tablecloth. So we drew the spaghetti and meatballs, and they were purple. And they said, well, this is very important because purple is a royal color. And these are the young people telling me this. And purple's my favorite color, so it was great that it was purple anyway. But I was just stunned at how much they knew and how important it was that we did it right. Like, we really want, and they're like, well, shouldn't we put a plate for Jesus here too? Because if God's coming, then Jesus is coming. And without starting a big old a litany about, the Trinity and everything, we just kind of went, yeah, everybody's welcome at this table, right? And they're like, yeah, so we can just fit as many people as we need to fit at this table. And they said, well, God should be at the center. And I'm like, boy, you guys could just teach messy church. And that's important because, this was so good, because in our sort of tenets of setting up teams, it is really important that the all ages value carries over into that part of it, the planning. Have young people on your planning team. They have ideas that you can't possibly have at older ages. They just, I think I have mostly learned from the young how to ignite my imagination, reignite it. And then from the older age people, it's really great to hear their life stories and experiences plugged into these gospel stories, like how it applies to them. They're so good and adept at figuring out how they can communicate that this applies to your life in this way, and not necessarily, oh, that's a great story. Wow. We've all heard this story a million times. It's like, let me tell you how that story changed my life, or let me tell you that story in a different way through my life lens. And just amazing. And the single person, the single adult that was there, was talking about how lonely it is to eat alone at a meal, and how wonderful this meal was because there were so many people there. Being a person who was missing their spouse, who was deployed, they had a chance to talk about how lovely it was to be around people during a meal when they're usually eating by themselves. So, all those people had input, all those people had value, and all those people got to interact together, no matter what their age, what their background, what their experiences were. We were there and in it together. It's fantastic.
Wow. So much good stuff. What I hear you saying is messy church is for everyone, not just for families with children, not just for the single person that doesn't have anyone else to eat with, that's looking for that community, for family, for connection. My My goodness. I mean, we can look at all the statistics around the epidemic of loneliness, right? And the amount of people that, don't even sit down for a meal, much less don't eat with anyone else, right? But I mean, also like learning from people younger than ourselves, people that are older than us, that just have such a wisdom of the ages and are able to bring the stories of Jesus and the stories of Jesus's life to light in a whole new way because of the wisdom of their years. What a gift. And in so many of our churches, that is not being mined for all of its worth. And wow. I mean, I think the other thing that I just would love to kind of point out is while we still have, plenty of large churches, I would say there are fewer and fewer of them, and more of our churches, at least from my point of view, from where I am sitting in my place in the country, I think we have more and more that are really struggling with how do we continue to engage both our aging church members as well as our younger church members or younger generations that are smaller in number, where we can't have full-time staff people or programming. But this is a way to engage all of the generations together where discipleship is happening. And there is a mutuality and a strengthening of the entire community that's happening together. Would you like to speak to any of that, or?
Absolutely, especially the discipleship piece. I think a lot of people think, they show up, they have food, they talk, but is this really discipleship? And what is that? What does it look like in messy church? And to be honest with you, discipleship is at the very core of what messy church is. You see, people come and they are in fellowship and in conversation with people about their faith. This is difficult to do. And some people might even call it evangelism. It's not. That's a scary big word and people don't like to use it, right? But we all begin with creating a space where we feel like we belong. And in that belonging, we find the place where we are with God, where our belief is and how we can grow. But when we belong, we take that belonging and we share it with other people because we're comfortable. We feel like, finally, I feel like I belong. It's difficult to do that in a church with 500 people. Yeah. It is really easy to do at Messy Church because everyone, when you eat a meal, you naturally launch into conversation. You naturally talk. But with Messy Church, there are questions that we talk about that can be kind of deep, and people tend to share over a meal because it's just a safe space usually. And in that sharing, in that feeling of comfort is where a disciple is born. And then they go out and they make disciples. And so it just happens. And the number one way people come to Messy Church is from personal invitation, because that's that discipleship piece happening. And it just happens because people talk about their experiences at Messy Church in a way that they never could about maybe Sunday church, because people kind of have a preconceived notion about Sunday church. Messy church, people don't even know what it is half the time. Mm-hmm. And so being able to describe it to someone helps you share. And then there's that discipleship piece that comes along with that. Like, hey, you should come with me. It really changed my life, or it's changed my idea of what church was. I was afraid. I've had a lot of people come in who will not, and still will not come to Sunday church, but they will come. We sometimes refer to it as tiny church, which I know is kind of funny. But they are comfortable and feel a part of and are willing to talk about with others their experiences at Messy Church. It's a win. It's just beyond a win.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a win for everybody.
Yeah. That creativity, that creativity and hospitality. I mean, I know some people, mostly tidy church people, are averse to the Messy Church title, right? But I think it's actually very welcoming to those who maybe don't feel comfortable in tidy church, or traditional forms of church. It's like, oh, okay, I feel like I could be comfortable in Messy Church, right? So, no, I think that makes absolute sense, Crystal. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. There is just like a natural ability because of that relational and the participatory nature, I think, of Messy Church lends itself to, I feel like I belong here because I'm participating. I'm a part of what's happening. It's not something that's happening to me or for me, but with my participation, with me being included in what's happening. So by nature of just how Messy Church is built, how it's the kind of the culture, I think that's really, really helpful for somebody that's kind of feeling nudged in this direction. To start something like this, where should they begin? What kind of guidance would you give them? Maybe they're not quite ready for training yet, but they're thinking about it.
Well, if you just read the book, Messy Church, that was done by Lucy Moore many years ago, it gives you a kind of an outline. I would never suggest, just from doing this so many years and doing so many trainings over the years and being an ambassador, I would never suggest to somebody to just start a Messy Church based on the book. There's so much more to it.
Yeah.
But if you just want to get an idea of what it is, that's a great place to start. Another great thing to do is go visit a Messy Church. Go see one in action. Find one near you, or maybe you're on vacation, and we have a directory on the messychurchusa.org website that can lead you in a direction to the nearest Messy Church, and we really pretty much have them in every state now, and they're all over the world. So if you happen to be, lucky enough to go to England, they have a ton of them there. So you can pretty much anywhere you go. We generally in the training suggest that people in tidy church, you're celebrating on Sunday. And there are some Messy churches that are on Sunday. But generally, the Sunday time is not available to everyone. And so the Messy churches that I started are on Wednesday evening. And so usually when you go to the hunt down a Messy Church, if you want to find one, you can find one most days of the week. You don't even have to worry about it being a Sunday. That's a great suggestion. Also, think about the last time you had a conversation with people of different ages. Just try that. Try just having a faith conversation with people of different ages. Maybe at Sunday church, you have a coffee fellowship or something, and you can go over and have a conversation with a group of people about your faith and see how that goes. And it doesn't have to be this intrusive, well, what do you think about Jesus? Or it doesn't have to be like that. It's just like, wow, the sermon today talked about breakfast on the beach. Have you ever had breakfast on the beach before? I mean, the sand would be everywhere. What do you think about that? And well, why do you suppose Jesus did that? Those kinds of conversations are great gateways to talking, and just opening that door to conversation about faith is really, honestly, at the core of Messy Church also. And that goes along with that discipleship piece. So doing some of those things. Also, some of the resources that are out there, like just visiting the Messy Church USA website will give you a ton of information. Getting out there, talking to people. I'm always available to have conversations through email, phone, whatever, with people who are interested or just have questions. Because it's difficult to sort of get your head around it, because a lot of people really want to throw it in the kids' category, and it's just not. I
Right.
have more singles and seniors in my messy churches than I do kids. So it is really, really for everybody.
Yeah. Again, that loneliness
Yes.
thing. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really, really helpful. I will definitely link in the show notes the Messy Church USA site and give everybody your contact info, Crystal. That's really helpful. As a trainer and ambassador for Messy, I'm wondering, how do you help churches kind of untangle these ideas of really not feeling like traditional congregations not feeling threatened by Messy Church? Because sometimes we have this idea of, oh, well, this is in competition with our existing church or even with children's ministry or programming or whatever. What are some things that you can do to help support that disconnection or not thinking about it as competition?
Well, I'll tell you, there's no right or wrong way to do church. So I'll just start with that and just say, not every church or way of doing church is for everyone. And different ways speak to different people. And there's many pathways to God, many, many. And messy church is one pathway. Sunday church is one pathway. And so you got Sunday covered. Most churches, Sunday church hasn't changed a lot in several hundred years. The elements are all there. Yeah. And people that love tradition love that. And there is nothing absolutely wrong in the world with that. In fact, they have found their place. They found their place where they feel at home, and they can be use that as a discipleship tool. There are people that are still searching, and messy church might be the pathway, but there could be something else like forest church. I don't know if you've heard about that, muddy church. There's a lot of different things that are very different from one another that might be people's pathway. And messy church is just another pathway. It's not trying to take anything away from Sunday church or from other ways, but it's just yet another way. And for me, it speaks to me. It allows me to grow in my faith in ways that I never quite frankly thought I ever would. And so, like I said, that's not for everybody, but it's for the people that it's for. Why not do it? Why not do it? Because it's, you're just creating another gateway, another pathway for people to learn about Jesus and, go and make disciples. I think there was somebody important that said that. I'm not great at quoting the Bible, but I think that's a biggie.
That's great. That's great. Crystal, is there anything else that I haven't asked you, or maybe something that you haven't shared that you feel like it's important for our listeners to hear about Messy Church?
Yeah, I guess one of the things that I would really say about Messy Church is that I believe that Messy Church can be, if people can be open to Messy Church, then they can be open to other things. And so that's the future of the church, in essence, is being open to different ways, those different pathways. Seeking God can be done in many, many different ways. And Messy Church, I love the way they do it through hands-on. There's different learning styles, of course, which feed into that. I could talk for days about that. But it's this possibility piece. The possibilities that come with Messy Church can lead to other things that maybe a church who had been stagnating or maybe not growing or maybe thinking about, gosh, I wish we could have a little something different once in a while, even because Messy Church is only once a month. It's not every week. And a lot of people get intimidated. Oh gosh, how we come up with this many every week. You don't have to do that. It's once a month because that is the average church attendance for most people is once a month.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Being open to those things, like if you don't go to church every week, that goes back to my Catholic roots. Like, make sure you go to confession because you're not going to be able to have communion if you don't go to, so those kinds of things, being more open and being accepting of different ways of doing things. And we're all seeking the same thing, ultimately, the kingdom of God. And it's all right there. We just got to find the right pathway. And Messy Church is I believe in it. It's a great pathway. I can't say enough good things about it. And as I said, I could talk for days about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Crystal. I know that many of the things that you shared today have really grabbed a hold of our listeners and have encouraged many and inspired many others. So looking forward to our time with Johanna in January and folks digging into the Messy Church journey and what this might look like in their context. Would love to invite you to pray for our listeners as we close out our conversation. Would you do that for us?
I certainly will. God of creativity and joyful noise, we bring our whole selves to you, untidy and untidy, hopeful and weary, curious and unsure. Thank you for meeting us in the mess, where glue sticks and conversations bind us together, where stories of Jesus come alive, and where every person finds a place at the table. Bless our hands as they create, our voices as they sing, our hearts as they open to your love. In the beautiful chaos of community, may we glimpse your kingdom, messy, marvelous, and full of grace. God of fresh expressions, inspire us to welcome new ideas, to see you in unexpected places, and to embrace worship that is playful, open, and alive. As people open their hearts to new ways of being church, may Messy Church remind us that faith is not about perfection, but about discovery, community, and love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Crystal. Boy, what a gift to hear from Crystal about how Messy Church invites people of all ages into belonging and creativity and shared faith. I love how this movement, just like Fresh Expressions, reminds us that church doesn't start when people come to us, but rather when we go to them and join God in what God is already doing in our neighborhoods and in families. If you'd like to learn more about Messy Church, be sure to check out the show notes. We have links there for resources and our January Messy Church Incubator. Remember, each month we have incubator training. That's a 2.5-hour online workshop where we design and dream and take some initial steps toward starting different specific streams of fresh expressions of church. So that incubator I will be doing with Executive Director of Messy USA, Johanna Myers. I hope you will join us for that. And thanks for listening to the Fresh Expressions podcast. If you found this episode helpful, I hope you'll share it with a friend. Leave a review wherever you're listening. And until next time, keep experimenting, keep loving your neighbors, and keep joining God in the places you live, work, eat, and play.